Welcome back to Aptera. This is part two of a summary of the webinar that we had with the ambassadors within the past few days. This video will focus on some of the legislative hurdles that are preventing the rollout of Aptera production once we are able to secure the funding that I talked about on the last video. It talks about some of the states that I believe are going to be getting their Aptera vehicles later in the process due to some of these laws, and also a little bit about what we can do to help with this situation.
I'm Jonathan Posey. I work on state government affairs at Aptera, and we're working to update some of the state laws just to make things a little easier for you as an owner of Aptera. So for example, two things that are coming out next year is we're working on legislation in Massachusetts, Texas, and Montana, because those states, they have a helmet law. And it's kind of strange, but 4 states in America still require a helmet for a vehicle which is fully enclosed. This law just hasn't quite gotten updated yet in order for someone who sits in an Aptera to not have to need a helmet. We're all for helmets. We think helmets are great, but you don't need one inside of a fully enclosed vehicle. So we're working on legislation to get that fixed. We now have some sponsors in the Montana Senate. We have a great bill in Texas. We just need to find a sponsor for that. And in Massachusetts, we have a couple of interesting folks that could help us out. They don't have a autocycle definition in their law. And what an autocycle is a 3-wheeled, fully enclosed vehicle, i.e. Aptera. So we're working on that. We've got some great ambassadors who are helping us to make those connections, like Kevin Blue in Massachusetts, who was really awesome. He ran into his state representative at a fair and was like, hey, we've got this issue with helmets and an autocycle definition. Can you help us? And that was super, super helpful for me, because then I could reach out to that state representative, Driscoll, his name is, and say, hey, I'm contacting you on behalf of one of your constituents. So some of you may have seen the email that we sent around where we said, hey, click this link and it will send an email to your representative. Thank you to everyone who's done that. If you haven't seen that email, get in touch with us. We'll send you the links. I also sent an email to some of you in Texas and Montana saying, hey, you're really important because your representative sits on, say, the transportation committee, or is someone that we really need to convince that this is a good thing and we need to get this legislation passed. But we're also working on other things. And so for right now, we're just focused on those few states, sort of the low-hanging fruit, those little things. But I'll be talking to pretty much everyone, all of you, at some point, because we're also working on little tiny improvements to the law, or small things that we can do to improve the value for you as an Aptera customer. So tax credits is a really good opportunity for that. We're working in Ohio right now. We've got some legislation coming next year that'll give you a tax credit from the state for purchasing an electric vehicle. But other opportunities that we're looking at try to take advantage of the size, the design, and the solar aspect. So basically, I'm the guy, one, who's working the entire country, going from state to state to state, to try to find where we can improve the value for you as a customer, lower that cost to obtain Aptera, to drive an electric vehicle, and to have all of that movement freedom. So be sure to look out for emails from me, and I would really appreciate your help, because you matter more than anything as a constituent.
Yeah, so a few things that he touched on, I'm going to look at on the next slide here, but one thing that he touched on is that he's working on getting a tax credit in Ohio, and I think that's a huge deal. You know, even if it's the smallest amount, it makes a difference for those of us that are trying to buy this vehicle. I do think that there's a possibility that if every state, or if federally a tax credit becomes available, that it will become much easier for Aptera to increase the price of Aptera, and that seems to be what a lot of manufacturers have been doing with other vehicles. As soon as they run out of the tax credit, they lower the price, and when they realize that they're going to get the tax credit back with the new Inflation Reduction Act, they are increasing the price again. So it's sort of a game that they can play, but I think it would be amazing if we can keep the cost of the Aptera the same while also getting a tax credit for a vehicle that takes pressure off of each state electric grid and also reduces our use of gasoline. So this is the site that you can go to. It's aptera.us/move, and it talks about some of the legislative things that they have been working on. So right now, the states that allow for direct sales, which basically means you can sell it from the internet and ship it to a consumer, are here in green. And you can see that there is a lot missing in the Midwest, as well as in parts of the East Coast. And the West Coast is doing pretty well with this. The gray states are the ones that have this as a possibility for Tesla only, so some sort of Tesla loophole that allows them to sell Tesla vehicles to people in those states. And then the states that are colored in black have not made any headway towards those types of sales. So for some of these light gray and dark gray or black states, you can click on this button to contact your representative. It's only available for some of the states, but if your state shows up there, you just click on that button and you can fill out this form. So here are the two states that they are concerned about helmet laws, and that's Montana and Texas. And there's some mention that Massachusetts may have a little bit of an issue with it as well. So if you live in one of these two states, then you would click on this button here and fill out a similar form. I bring this up because I don't think Aptera is going to ship you your vehicle until they have figured out some of this legislative hoopla behind the helmet laws. They want to get that figured out for everyone before they get these out on the roads in those states. And that's just a guess that I have. You'll see that if you go to this page, you'll also have the ability to invest with the new investment campaign that they are running. So that's all I've got for this video. I think this is a pretty important concept if you live in some of the affected states. If you live in some of these green states, then you probably have nothing to worry about with getting your Aptera soon after they start production. But there are some questions that still have to be answered from a legislative standpoint from some of these other states. And then again, if there's any way to convince state legislatures to give a tax credit for a three-wheeled solar electric vehicle, I think that would make a huge difference in terms of getting more reservations for the Aptera and also getting these vehicles out on the roads.